Hey guys, welcome to the Heart of David. I felt a need to do this video as a Canadian. And if you're Canadian, I think you would probably really enjoy this speech. This is a Christian channel. And, I'm a born again Christian, and I prefer not to have politics and stuff like that, even though I've been interested since I was about 15 years old in politics. I certainly haven't been listening to 90% of what I was since I was born again. It's just been tapering off, but there are certain issues that are going to affect many people, and this is one of them. And so I want to make it really clear that I understand that Justin Trudeau has made an absolute mockery of the Canadian people. The Canadian people were known as, I'm not kidding you, the most resilient on earth. One of, I believe, the toughest people, the nicest, kindest people. Surely the world remembers that. And it's the government. It's the Trudeau government that has put us in this place, but it's also because of the internet connectivity, all these types of things that are making people are different today, and it's because of connectivity. So people aren't standing up anymore and doing that type of stuff, and that's why this is good, this speech here. And you may not agree with some of it, and I'm going to explain some of it first. To tell you that I'm not for I don't want to be political. When I look at, the case of Trudeau is obvious. He's got to go. He had to go. He should have never been a prime minister. He never had the credentials. He's ruined a lot of stuff. On the other side of the coin, I think this is the first time that someone is actually standing up to Donald Trump and is effective in a speech, that is. This isn't a hater of Donald Trump. This is just talking about the truth. Sorry guys, I have difficulty speaking, just in case you've never seen me. For me, it's not a Democrat conservative thing. I'm just an ambassador of Jesus Christ. I see things. Now, I have no idea what Donald Trump has done. Did he commit fraud long ago? And all these charges now, I know they're fake charges, but it is possible that the fraud ones were true, because they've talked about that for many, many years. In any case, I'm not judging him that way. That's not what I'm doing. I'm putting this on the table. Now, I understand Canada has a very serious immigration problem. I think they said there are 500,000 people that have overstayed their green card. People are taking advantage of us. They are. There's definitely a border issue, and that's what I want to kind of discuss. I understand what Donald Trump is saying, and Canada is usually very slack in answering to, with a government like Trudeau. It only makes sense to have a defended border, like, watched, and especially during the fentanyl crisis and everything that's happening in the world. So what Trump is saying, Canada should have already done already. Also NATO too. And I believe that will change when it changes hands. I think Pierre Poilievre will win. But anyways. Now imagine this. I do believe, and Trump supporters, you've had such hell in your country, and you want someone to take care of business. I understand that. You want someone to get things done. You want the economy going. he could very well be the man to do it because he proved it before. So when I look in, our purpose is to be Christ-like. So when I look in that lens and I look at Trump, I see a bully. I see a bully. He bullies a lot of people. He does. The things he says, and I know he lies a lot too. He's been caught in many lies. So imagine this. Our world is teetering on the brink. Canada, right now, we were one of the richest countries. All of a sudden, because of the Trudeau government, we are equivalent with we're 60% of what the US is as far as what people make on average. And we're tied with the sixth last state, which is Alabama. The sixth poorest state. We are tied with that. Now, Canada has a ton of resources and smarts in many fields, but we're not doing well. And again, that's Trudeau. So when Donald Trump starts to swing his sword, right, and say, I'm going to put 25% tariff, that's huge. Canada and the U.S. trading partnership is massive. It's, I don't know, it's like $1 trillion. $1 trillion. And I'll go quickly look at some stats, and then I'll play this for you to hear. So we are standing up. A lot of people are talking about this. And Doug Ford, I don't know, I think it's BC and Ontario, which is a lot of our population, is going to cut them off from energy. Now, I don't know what the status is right now. That's from what I saw last. Oil. We give a lot of oil. Your biggest import is Canada. A huge amount of oil. So, anyways, what I'm saying is we're doing reverse tariffs on you, like we did to Trump before when he was in office. And it worked then. But it's like steel, potatoes. Do you know we give you guys more potatoes than I think even you do yourself because of like Alberta, Quebec. So like steel, nickel, like I said, potatoes, energy. There's a ton of stuff. There's a lot of high-tech stuff too. We're leaders in the world for high-tech. I understand that right now, because of the Trudeau government and because of the Biden administration, both countries are a joke. Not the people, though. And I'd say especially the people of Canada. We've always been humble people. In any case, just take a look at the States right now and you wonder who's more corrupt. There's hundreds of drones flying everywhere. There's some type of psychological operation going on, unless you actually believe in UFOs flying all over the place. If there's 10 million square kilometers on the Earth and the United States stands for a quarter of that, where is it all happening? In the States only. Corruption city, man. Anyways, I'm suffering with a kidney stone in this, by the way, in case you're wondering why I'm so uncomfortable. Let's watch this. And what he says, first I'm going to go to statistics, then I'm going to play it. But what he says at the beginning, I'm not saying I agree. It's his general message that I agree with, and it's got a lot of reviews. I haven't heard a speech like this from a Canadian or anyone standing up to Donald Trump for that matter, ever. And Trump is a bully. He does this. And for two rich countries that do, main trading with each other and are great allies, why would you mock? Why would you mock us to get your way. And that's my point. That's exactly my point. So let's look at some stats. I give credit to Donald Trump because, for one reason, that he's right about the border. But to compare us basically on the same level as Mexico, think of the cartels. Think of the cartels' rape, murder, trafficking of women and children. He's putting us on the same level, and it's your government responsible for that. So it's kind of funny coming from that, coming from you guys. So the United States and Canada trade a significant amount of goods and energy, and the two countries are each other's main source of imported energy. In 2022, the total trade between the States and Canada was over, so it's $1 trillion. In 2023, exports to the States fell to 592.7 billion. Is this why he's saying there's a deficit, Trump? Well, imports increased to 484 billion. Energy trade. In 2023, the two countries traded traded 198.2 billion in energy, with Canada registering a surplus of Canadian dollars 134 billion. In 2022, the value of energy trade between the two countries was 190 billion, adjusted for inflation. Energy exports. Canada exports about 27% of its merchandise exports to the States, and almost all of its crude oil production is so you hear that right? Most of Canada's crude oil production is exported to the United States. If that was cut off, that's going to hurt you guys big time. Certainly in some states. In 2023, energy products made up 27.9, so 28% of total exports to the States. The United States and Canada are each other's main source of imported energy, including oil, natural gas, clean electricity, and uranium. By the way, that uranium, we have it. We have the biggest concentration, by the way. Do you know we have a mine with 70% uranium? You know that? That's the highest in the world by many times over. 70%. That's crazy. Other places are, at highest 15% or something. In 2022, the States exported 33.8 billion in energy to Canada. Okay, there's obviously a lot of other stuff. I'm just going to put, see what comes up, potatoes. 100 million a year exports of fresh potatoes to Canada. Okay, I don't know. It's a two-way street, right? But look at this. The U.S. tariff would 25% would devastate PEI, potato industry. So it's last year, almost 80% of international exports from PEI were shipped to U.S., representing 1.8 billion in trade. Is that just from PEI? Man. So most of your potatoes, I believe, are from Canada. So that would affect that as well. You guys eat a lot of French fries. So let's take a look at this video, and I'll comment as necessary. And as I said at the beginning, there's stuff that you may or may not agree with, but listen to the rest. I want you to hear it's the spirit of what Canada still is, but is masked by this current government. This is how I view Canada. Not the beginning, but just keep watching it.
We're in a different situation with Donald Trump, a convicted predator who's seriously undermining the democratic process in the United States, and he thinks he can just push us around. He insults us.
Yeah.
You know, the Conservatives seem to like it because he's insulting our Prime Minister, but he's not really insulting the Prime Minister. He's insulting Canadians, calling us the 51st state.
That's right, exactly.
You know, once there was a Canada that had a flag that didn't need to be waved. A flag that represented who we are. We didn't boast about it.
That was Charlie Angus, a member of the Canadian House of Commons. He's part of the NDP, or New Democratic Party. Look, I'm not here to weigh in on internal Canadian politics, but I do want to highlight Charlie Angus's incredible speech on the floor of the House of Commons, where I think he...
And I'll just cut in. Listen, I'm not endorsing this guy. I don't care if he's from the left or wherever. It's about this. And Charlie Angus is a person who, for 3 decades, has stood up for good principles. Okay, not the kind of crap we see today. So
he's channeling the frustration of millions of Canadians at the way Donald Trump has been behaving and bullying the incredible country of Canada. I want to play for you the full speech here where Charlie Angus, again, a member of the House of Commons, starts talking about the distortions coming out of Mar-a-Lago. He then talks about how Donald Trump continues to bully Canada, calling Canada the 51st state. He talks about how Donald Trump is trying to radicalize Canadians against Canada as well. And he talks about the importance and enduring values that have always been there in Canada. And I want you to watch this right here, because the fact that Donald Trump is spending his transition period bullying what is one of America's best allies.
you may say that it's just a joke, what he's, texting about Canada and stuff like that, but when it comes to the bottom line, this is extremely serious, guys. It really is. There's people teetering on the brink, and you know that. On both sides, on the US and Canada.
Allies. You can hear the frustration on Charlie Angus's voice, in his
The brink of what I mean is monetary collapse for many people.
voice. Let's play it.
Amplify the distortions that are coming out of Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump. Primarily his falsehood that Canada is this fentanyl trafficking system causing deaths in the United States, and that what he's put on the table is the threat of a 25% tariff that would cause economic havoc to families and workers and businesses across Canada. There was a time when parliamentarians would have stood up for Canada and responded to these falsehoods. But that's not how Canada's parliament operates under the member who lives in the 19-room mansion at Stornoway. It's to burn the house to the ground at all costs.
Exactly.
And that's a dangerous position for democracy to be in. I'd like to start just by, we have the world's longest undefended border. And other than 1812, when they attacked us and tried to take us over, we've maintained that border. And we've maintained good-natured relations. But we haven't gone along with the Americans when they've tried to bully us. We haven't embraced their wide open and dangerous death cult gun culture. Mm-hmm. Even though many, many, many Canadians are registered gun owners, we accept the principle of having responsible gun ownership as opposed to the reckless guns that are killing people across the United States. We have not supported their belief that health care should belong to those who have money. Exactly. We took a different tact, even when we were being undermined as being communists and socialists at the time. When the United States insisted that Canadians, young men, go and die in the rice paddies of Vietnam, we said, no, we're not going to send our young men to die in Vietnam. It's a wrong war, and it was a wrong war. And we opened our borders to many great young Americans who were not going to go die needlessly in Vietnam.
That's right.
When they tried to pressure us to go into the false attack on Iraq, We said no. And we were under enormous pressure then. And in the 1980s, when Ronald Reagan was launching horrific violence in Latin America, and El Salvador and Guatemala, and then they were deporting thousands of people out of the United States who were trying to escape the genocide that was happening in the hills of Guatemala, they put enormous pressure on us to close our border because people who could not go back to the death squads in El Salvador and Guatemala were trying to cross the border at Buffalo to get into Canada to be safe. And at that time, Brian Mulroney said, oh, we have to have the same border principles as the United States.
No, I know what you're going to say, and I would say that was a different time. They weren't flooding borders, right? So I just want to make that clear distinction.
And Canadians stood up and said, no, those are not our values. And we pushed that back because we could not send people back to the death squads. So yes, they are our neighbors, but we have stood up to them. We're in a different situation with Donald Trump, a convicted predator who's seriously undermining the democratic process in the United States, and he thinks he can just push us around.
Exactly.
He insults us.
Yep.
You know, the Conservatives seem to like it because he's insulting our Prime Minister, but he's not really insulting the Prime Minister. He's insulting Canadians, calling us the 51st state.
That's right, exactly.
You know, once there was a Canada that had a flag that didn't need to be waved. A flag that represented who we are. We didn't boast about it. It wasn't until our flag was appropriated by conspiracy haters and stuck on pickup trucks, promoting all kinds of disinformation. Our flag was something that just said, it's about values. And it's something that we all understood. We didn't have to brag about. We didn't have to brag about that when we were a country of 11 million people and the Americans were saying, oh, we don't want to go to war. On the very first day Hitler invaded Poland, 11 million Canadians stood up and created the fourth largest air force in the world, the fourth largest navy in the world. We sent our young people all across the world to defend the notion of freedom and parliamentary democracy. And we paid an enormous price. And we came back and we didn't wave the flag. Then we just came back and did what we did because we were Canadians. But here we are with this falsehood being perpetrated by the member who lives in Stornoway, that whatever Donald Trump says, he will use to burn the house down to the Prime Minister. So he's using this falsehood on fentanyl, which is an absolute falsehood. I have the Drug Enforcement Agency on classified reports on fentanyl. Fentanyl, they write about China. They write about India. They write about Mexico. There's just one very tiny thing about a small amount coming from Canada. That's not the issue. Fentanyl's not the issue, but the Conservatives will use that falsehood, threatening a 25% tariff. You can bet that these dumbed-down speeches claiming that Canada's a broken border and a fentanyl trafficking area is going to be used on every right-wing blogcast and on Fox News to further undermine our country.
Exactly.
They would do that. They would burn our house to the ground because they don't care about truth. They wouldn't know what truth was. If truth came down, Lady Truth came down naked, painted purple, and danced all over Stornoway for weeks. The member wouldn't notice. But I say that jokingly, but it's not a joke, because what Trump's really after is our water. He's made it clear. He said there's a giant faucet in Canada and you just turn it on. There was a time when we would have defended those resources, but you can bet if Donald Trump says, I want Canada's water, the Conservatives will use this House of Commons to promote his attack on our resources.
Exactly.
To take what they can take, because they don't take us seriously. They think they can push us around, and they can only push us around if we have fifth columnists. You know, fifth columnists was what they called Franco's people, who undermined the defense of democracy in Spain. People who would undermine their own country to score a point. Another term was quislings.
Yep.
We need to stand up to Donald Trump, not to be boasting like he boasts.
What's a quisling? I remember that from reading a lot about World War II and watching stuff, and so I think he was a leader in Belgium, and he really wanted to join hands with Adolf Hitler, and he pretty much betrayed his own country. And I think it was Winston Churchill who said, we're going to use your name as a byword now. And they call them Quislings. In other words, cowards. I may have some of that wrong. I haven't read that in a long time, but you get my point. Like they would do anything to get in the good grace of Adolf Hitler. I'm not saying Trump is Adolf Hitler. I'm giving a general message here that what he is doing is trying to push countries around where he just simply, this isn't the way that you should conduct. And that's the way he looks at it, is a business. He's not looking at people that could be hurt. And I do believe Canada will impose the tariffs back to them.
And not to be threatening like he threatens, but to stand for Canadian values.
Here, here.
That no, we will counter falsehood with truth. That we will be a good neighbor, that we will protect our border, but that we will not be pushed around. Not the way the member who lives in Stornoway will amplify falsehoods and misuse the House of Commons,
He's talking
knowing
about Justin Trudeau.
that it is putting Canadian jobs and families directly at risk because they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care because it's about burning the house to the ground to get to the Prime Minister. So I'm not even going to go down into the gutter with them where they make these falsehoods about how the Prime Minister, who I don't agree with on hardly anything, that he somehow created the fentanyl crisis that caused thousands of deaths. That's an ugly falsehood. It's just a straight up lie. But they use that all the time. But to have them come into the House of Commons and talk about defending the border, when under Stephen Harper, they trashed border security.
That's right.
Remember when Tony Clement took $50 million out of border security and spent it on bogus projects in his riding, like the gazebos and the sunken boats and the fake lakes.
Fake lakes.
They took money that would have protected our borders and used that so shamelessly when they fired 1,100 jobs from the Canada Border Services. And they were told the threats that would be. And they got rid of the dog sniffer teams. Maybe Stephen Harper doesn't know what a dog sniffer team is. A dog sniffer team is what you use to sniff out drugs. It was the Harper government who got rid of that. They got rid of their intelligence agency at the border. They got rid of their teams who went undercover to take on the smuggling gangs. Wow. That's the record of Stephen Harper. So when they come in this house and pretend they stand for Canada, we know they don't stand for Canada. When they come in this house and say they'll stand up on the world stage, we know that they supported Putin and undermining the votes for Ukraine. Yeah. And when they say they'll defend the border, they're only defending the interests of Donald Trump, and they would sell us down the river, but not on my watch, not on our watch, not ever. We will stand up for Canada.
Here, here.
And comments, the Honourable Prime.
That was a powerful speech right there. And again, you're not going to see Canadian House of Commons speeches, I think, anywhere else other than here on the Midas Touch Network. So give Charlie a shout out as well for doing that.
So in conclusion, why did I make this video? Because I believe Donald Trump is a bully. No matter if he does good for 500 million people, and then there's 500 million and 100, and those 100 people he bullies, he's still bullying them. He still does it. He's like a child, and what's on the line, I believe, could actually kill a lot of people because of poverty. It could end up in suicide. There's a lot of butterfly effect to this. I think it's irresponsible, and it could have been done in another manner. Now again, I said a lot of the things that guy said, I'm not saying are true. What I'm standing up is for the Canadian people in this video. And I heard a lot of stuff that I haven't heard in a long time, and I'm glad he said that. It was a good speech, and you don't hear people standing up to Trump like that. You don't. It looks like he gets wins everywhere, but sometimes he doesn't.